Alright, hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to give you a guide onto how you can easily get your physics practical done without having any issues with the marking guide and marking scheme. So the page that we have here is the WAEC official page where the chief examiner gives the marking guide and marking scheme and also the direction on how the question paper should be answered. As you can see here, this is physics paper 3 WAEC school exam 2023. But before I continue, I will urge you to like, comment and share this video so that others can see this video. The essence of this video is just to run you through the mark scheme and mark guide and how marks are awarded and allocated, and to help students avoid losing marks during their WAEC physics practical. Okay, so let's just quickly run through it. So I have a setup here. This is the setup for the WAEC practical 2023. So I'll use this as a guide as to what we are to expect. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm not carrying out the practical. I will carry out the practical in separate videos based on the parameters that WAEC have asked schools to provide. So I'll do separate practicals of that. So do stay tuned to this channel to look out for those practical. So the first thing that you need to do when carrying out WAEC practical is to read through the instruction. That is very important. So when you read through the instruction, like as you can see here, read through all of this instruction. I am not going to do that right now because I am not carrying out the practical, but it is very important to read through the instructions so as to get a clue on what you are to do with the practical. So having said that, I'll just look through the mark scheme and the observations. So you can see here the observation. This is the observation from the chief examiner for the physics exam. So he talked about the weaknesses. The weaknesses are that the candidate mistakenly swapped the axis because they could not tell the difference between the y-axis, that is the ordinate, and the x-axis, the abscissa. So in that question, why did not actually use the normal plot the graph of so and so on the vertical axis, and the other parameter on the horizontal axis. So what they actually did, they actually used ordinates and abscissa. So the ordinate is y-axis and the abscissa is the s-axis, in case you're asked to do that again. Then we'll have the strength, so the ability to carry out the instructions and record observations as required. So you see, the strength was that most students were able to read the instructions. It's very important that you know how to read. You must always read the instructions and also record your observation. It's very important. So we're going to look at the steps that you are expected to take when recording your observations. So we have expected responses. So the expected responses are this. So observations, 9 marks. So you can see it here. You are given 9 marks for that, for this question. So reasonable value of G. That question, you can read through the question. They will ask to record the G, which is the center of gravity of that meter rule. So it should be recorded correctly, determined and record at least, very important, 1 decimal place. So if, say for example, your center of gravity G is 50, this has to be recorded to at least G equals 50.0. You must put the unit centimeter, or you can say G equals 50.00 centimeter. As long as it is at least 1 decimal place, you are correct. This is wrong because there's no decimal place and there's no unit. If you record 50 centimeter, this is also wrong because there's no decimal. The reason why you have to record to at least 1 decimal place is because when taking direct readings from a measuring instrument, you must record to at least one decimal place. So it's very important that you know that. The direct measuring instrument could be meter rule, could even be analog stopwatch. At least, when they say at least, does not mean that it has to be one decimal place, but it must not be less than one decimal place. It can be one decimal place, two decimal places, three decimal places. And I'd advise you to always take the readings to two decimal places. That would be better. But if you take it to one decimal place, it's okay, it's fine. But it's advisable take it to two decimal places so that you don't make errors. Then next on the list is 5 values of M correctly recorded in grams. So you are giving masses to a record, so you must record those values. What you are asked to record, you must record them in table. You must put them in table. So in this table, though I have not performed them, I know that I'm going to have M in grams. The unit must be stated like this. So this is one parameter that must be there. You get that now. Then look at the way you're going to lose mark. Deduct half mark for each wrong or missing value. So if you do not put the mass correctly, you are going to miss mark. You're going to miss half mark each. So you must put those values there, because it was stated in the question. Then 5 values of Y correctly determined and recorded to at least one decimal place. So you are recording the value of Y to at least one decimal place again, because you are taking a direct reading from a reading instrument, the meter rule. So on my table, I'm going to have Y in cm. You see now, I'm going to have that, and I'm going to have 5 values of it recorded there, because I have 5 values of M. Okay, to one decimal place. So for instance, if my Y was, let's say, 20 cm, I must record it to at least 20.0. That's fine. If I decide to make it 20.00, it's fine, because it's at least one decimal place. Okay, so if it's one decimal place, okay. But what you should not do is that this cannot be in one decimal place. Then you record another, let's say 35.5. Now this becomes an issue, because if this is 35.5, then you have to add 0 to make it 35.0. It must be uniform all through. Okay, the readings must be uniform all through. You must always put the uniform at the decimal places or significant figures to be exactly what the same. Now there is a trend. So they look at the trend. The trend is that as M increases, Y decreases. That's for this question. It's not compulsory that it has to be like that for other questions, but there's always a trend. If one is increasing, the other one should increase or decrease, or both of them should decrease, both of them increase, or vice versa, or one should be increasing and the other one decreasing. So these are trends that they look at. So you have to take note of this when carrying out your practical. So you are awarded 1 mark for this. So if Y is decreasing, like my only I have increasing, so it means that I'm assuming that the masses are decreased based on this experiment. So if you have that, okay, so you're going to put that and note that. So you're awarded 1 mark for that. So you see that once what you have here are done correctly, you're going to have what? 1 mark. If you do this incorrectly, you're going to be losing what? Half mark. You get that? So for this, you're getting 1 mark for this. Then 5 values of M inverse. So it means that on my table, I'm going to have M inverse again. So that will be in per gram. The units are very important. Okay, so I'm going to have that in per gram. So you have this. Deduct half mark. Deduct half mark for each wrong or missing value. So if there's a missing value or wrong value for M inverse, they're going to deduct half mark each. So your table should compose of M inverse, and Y. So you get that. So these are the 3 values that are required to be put inside that table. So you must have at least all these values inside that table. If all these values are not inside the table, then that means your graph is not correct. Okay. Next is the graph. So the graph. So for the graph, you'll be awarded 6 marks. So axis correctly distinguished, award half mark each for each axis. So when we talk about axis, we're talking about the X and Y axis. So let's see if we have this, the Y axis and the X axis. I'll just use this as instances. So on my Y axis, now let's see if we are asked to plot, let's say for example, Y on the vertical, on the, as the ordinate, that is on the vertical axis, and M inverse as the abscissa, that is on the horizontal axis. That means here you must put Y here and put the unit in centimeter. On this side, you must state that it is M inverse in grams. So this means that you have stated the axis correctly. So without the unit, you have not stated them correctly. So you get half mark each, half mark each. So this is half mark for this. Then reasonable scale. Okay, half mark each again. So a reasonable scale means that on the vertical axis, you should get a very good scale. What it means that the value should be well spaced out. For instance, if I have values as my Y values as, let's say for instance 20, 35, let's say 42.05, let's say 0.50, let's say 53.33, let's say just random value 65.55. So some people make this mistake. They will come to this place and put 20 here, they put 35.5, they put 42.5, they put 53.5, and so on and so forth. So this is a wrong scale. This scale is unacceptable. In fact, you will be paid for using this. What you do is this: you check your scale, check the values, and find out which of them, how it can occupy the values on that given axis, whether it is Y axis or the X axis. So if I want to write a scale for this, I know that my least value is 20 and the highest is 25. So what on your graph, you have a lot of space to be used on that. So you can extend it up. But what I can do is that I can choose, okay, let's say 2 cm to 10 cm. So what it means that this will be 10, this would be 20, this will be 30, this will be 40, 50, 60. I can extend it to 7. So this is a proper scale. This is just a rough scale. So this is a proper scale because the length between this and this would be 10, because this is 0. The length between this and this will also be 10, 20 minus. So it must be evenly what spaced out. When you have this, you have a reasonable scale, a scale that is reasonable. And when writing your scale, you should not use odd numbers. It makes your graph to be very awkward. That's not a reasonable scale. If you do something like this, let's say 3, 6, 9, 12, this is not a reasonable scale because you cannot get smaller values for the multiple of these accurate values, whole number values. So what you do is that this is not a reasonable scale, okay? But you can use multiple of 2s, 1, 2, 5, 4. So that gives you a reasonable scale. So that also applies to this. So you see, for this, 5 points correctly plotted, meaning that for the 5 points correctly plotted, you must plot the point, each of the points, y-axis and the x-axis must be correct, must correspond with each other. So if you are plotting 5 against 10, this is 5, this is 5, this must be 10. If you are plotting 25 against 33, you must get 25 out of this and get, let's say, 33 out of this. So these points are very, very important. You must be able to read the exact point out of this point side and also here for you to get your full reading. So if you miss one of the points, you are going to deduct what? 1 mark. So it's 5 marks for that. Okay, then you now draw your line of best. Your line of best width is the line that's going to touch, or you draw across your graph, whether it touches everything or not. That's not very important, but we'll teach you how to draw the line of best fit when we carry out the experiment properly. Next is the slope. So for the slope, we are going to determine delta m inverse. We are going to determine delta m inverse and delta y. So in this case, it means that you are plotting m against y. So what it means is that you're going to have delta m inverse over delta y, which is the same as m2 inverse minus m1 inverse divided by y2 minus y1. So you must have all of that. Then to calculate the slope, now you draw a large triangle. Some people they find the habit of drawing very tiny triangles like this. That does not make sense. You're going to lose marks for that. So to draw your slope, you draw a very large triangle. Draw a very large triangle, then you calculate your slope. When we carry out more of the practical, we're going to look at all of this and explain them what this is just a simple guide to show you on how you will be able to pass your WAEC Physics Practical thoroughly, because no matter what you do, if you fail to adhere to all of this instruction, at the end of the day you end up losing marks, which we bring down your scores for the physics exam generally. So I hope that going through this video, you'll be able to gain one or two insights on how you will be able to do well in your WAEC Physics practical. Again, before you go, like, comment, and help us to share this video so that other people can see it. See you next time when we carry out the proper practical for the WAEC 2024 examination. Bye bye.